it's a very emotional way to think about plastic. They're like, plastic is bad. But actually, that's not even my message. Then I stripped down my lifestyle completely and really thought about every purchase that I made. I think it was a roller coaster of like anxiety one day and then positivity the next. It's this whole world that sucks you in, and you think that you have to comply or you have to get a diamond and then that shows your worth. It's just too demanding to think that they can fulfill every part of your needs.
So yeah, I'm welcoming Hannah to the Today is About podcast, and today is about eco lifestyles.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome. It's really good to have you on. Well, Hannah knows this, but this is really for everyone else who's watching. Hannah was supposed to be the first person on the podcast, and in some ways she was, but that episode never went out. So this is our reworked episode because Hannah wasn't actually in the country at the time we did it, and now she is. So here we are in the studio talking eco lifestyles, but specifically the Zero Waste Challenge.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So firstly, what was the Zero Waste Challenge?
Well, to give everyone a bit of context then, I was living in Hong Kong for about, I want to say 9 years, which is a really long time. Because I only planned to stay there for maybe like 6 months, a year max.
Yeah.
My parents are originally from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I went back 9 years ago just to feel it out, see what jobs I can get. Grew up in London. I went to school with you, Ayo, as you know.
We went to school together. Yeah. It was amazing. No, it wasn't. Well, that's enough story, but it was great being with you. I'm glad we did it together, basically.
Yeah. A lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Because we're both old. And living in Hong Kong, about 5 years ago, I just had a bit of a revelation. I was working for a food magazine at the time. It was just a very decadent sort of lifestyle I know it's first world problems, but like going to restaurants and having foie gras and Wagyu beef and like on a daily basis and just trying all these things. Great. But then after a while, I just sort of thought it was just so much.
Did it feel like wasteful and extravagant and just extra and unnecessary?
To the max.
Okay.
I mean, I was doing tastings probably on a daily basis. So, I mean, it was that for my life for about 2 years, and I just thought it was so much. And then going around Hong Kong, I don't know, you have been before.
I went to visit Hannah with our other friend, which was amazing. But yes, I have been. And what were you going to say about Hong Kong?
And it is a really fun place, really busy, very lively city, or was. I mean...
Yeah, pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic was a great place to live. And there's just so much waste everywhere you go. Every corner you turn, rather. You would see styrofoam boxes everywhere. Everything's delivered in plastic. Going to the supermarket, my gosh, every piece of vegetable would be wrapped in plastic, and then I just hit a point one day when I thought, okay, this is too much, and it doesn't seem that Hong Kong is recycling. So let me try to follow, let's say, a plastic bottle and see what that life cycle is, and does it actually get recycled, and just trying to do a bit more research. So that kicked off the idea of a Zero Waste Challenge. So, taking influence from the US, from Australia, places like this, there's a thing called zero waste living that was already in place when I started. So I just took influence from that, and I was like, can you actually do that in a place like Hong Kong? And can you do that for a year? So I basically pledged to live a zero waste lifestyle for a year, and then see where that took me and what I learned. And the whole idea really was a learning process of what gets recycled, what doesn't, what the system is like, and is there things like wish cycling and greenwashing? Is that really true in a place like Hong Kong?
So I have a question. What is wish cycling? Because I've heard of greenwashing, Never heard of wish cycling before.
It's when you go like, oh, I have this flimsy piece of plastic. I don't know if I can recycle it or not. It doesn't say on, the councils are really good here. They tell you exactly where to put each piece of recyclable material. But let's say it's not on that sheet. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put it in the bin, in the recycling bin, and wish for it to be recycled. And there's a lot of that because when you think about the different types of plastics, there's by the way, 7 types of household plastic that we can recycle.
Yep.
So it goes from number 1, which is your regular PET bottle. You can find this out if you turn over any type of packaging, and then you'll see that triangle there, and then it has a number in each of the triangles. So it goes from 1 to 6, let's say, and then 7 is simply just labelled as other. And that's where it gets really confusing because that's where a lot of plant plastics are. And then a lot of the cities cannot take in and recycle because maybe it's a PLA plastic, right? So then it's like it's made from plants. It was made from cornstarch, for example. And they say it's biodegradable, but you still need to put it in a certain facility. It has to be heated to a certain temperature before it even gets broken down. So with that, if you then think, oh, this looks like a piece of plastic, it's like my cutlery or a plate, it says number 7 on it. It looks like a normal PET or PP number 5 plastic, which can get recycled quite easily. If it's a number 7, I put it in the recycling bin and I wish for it to be recycled. But then at the end, it might actually cause more damage to the recycling system because it's harder to then separate those from the number 1s and the number 5s.
So I always thought, because I get a bit, I wouldn't say I'm militant about the recycling, but I have been known to see something in the bag and I'm like, that's not recyclable, and take it out and like put it in the bin. So I always thought if you put something in recycling that actually can't be recycled, you've contaminated your bag.
Well, it depends on what it is. I think it's the level of contamination.
Okay.
So let's say you have a number 7 plastic and it's full of your leftover lunch, which is really greasy. So then if you do that, or even any type of plastic and it's like full of oil, you put that in the recycling bin, there is likelihood, it's not guaranteed, it's likelihood it might not get recycled because it costs the city more money to sort, clean, separate and then store that rather than just getting a clean bit of recycling. And
that's why it's really important to wash it first.
It has to be clean, and not everyone knows. They just like find these bins, they're like, oh, I'm doing a good thing, putting it in there. Things like Tetra Pak, those little cartons there, all over Asia. But you can't, it's layered with metal, with plastic, with paper. So it's really hard to separate it and you need special machinery to separate it. And then usually there's like a juice box, right? So there's lots of juice still in it, residual. It's harder to clean.
I mean, with the Zero Waste Challenge, because it sounds like it was a real challenge because Hong Kong, especially when you did it, 5 years ago?
5 or 6, I don't know. COVID, I've lost my years.
I lost 3 years of my life to COVID. But when you were doing it, because I remember kind of like looking at it and like seeing what you were doing, and we have talked about it before, but when you were doing it, like Hong Kong's like moved on a bit now compared to when you were doing it. And I remember when I came out to visit you, which was after you had done it, and it felt like you were the anomaly, just to put it into context. We went to a restaurant and Hannah brought out her, you brought out your own takeaway stuff.
I don't remember this, but yes, I'm sure I did.
Because you were like, I can't finish this, but I'm not wasting it. So you brought out your own takeaway stuff, you packed it all up, and then I think the way it was a bit like, what's happening here? But you were really on it with that kind of thing. And it did feel like you were the anomaly. And that was what? That was just before the pandemic, I think we went out to visit you. So considering the fact that it wasn't like loads of people were doing it, I mean, how did your friends around you take it?
I'd say, I mean, supportive in general. People get it, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like now people have moved on a lot. It's a very emotional way to think about plastic. They're like, plastic is bad. But actually, that's not even my message.
Yeah.
It's you know, the reason why I brought my own container was actually also we should think about food waste.
Yeah.
You know, food waste contributes a lot to the landfill. And then, you know, a fun fact for you.
Okay, yeah.
How long do you think it could take for a head of lettuce to decompose in a landfill?
I don't think it would, because it's in a plastic bag. So the things that decompose the lettuce aren't actually going to get to it.
Yeah, or even not even a plastic bag, just a raw head of lettuce. If it went into just a normal, you know, field, it would take a few weeks, months.
Yeah.
But in a landfill,
It's a different situation.
it's different. It's not forever, but it could take 25 years.
And is that because they line landfills, don't they? Yeah. So, which adds to the issue of trying to decompose things.
Yeah, so there's a lack of sunlight, there's a lack of oxygen, so it essentially just mummifies and then produces methane, carbon dioxide, all of the greenhouse gases. When you're thinking about waste, you're also thinking about the carbon emissions as well. So there's a two-pronged thing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's the food waste that you also have to think about. But then, you know, it's a balance.
Yeah.
Because if you go to the supermarket and you're like, I forgot my reusable bag.
Yeah.
And then people get so emotional now. They're like, I can't take that plastic bag. I'm going to buy a new reusable bag. You probably need to use that over 100 times to make that even. So if you actually bought that plastic bag, used it once or twice, and then recycled it, the carbon emissions and that whole journey to make it would be much far lower than that cotton bag.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not about being so extreme that you kind of forget about the balance of why we're doing this.
Yeah, because it's become a really touchy subject these days as well. But one thing about the plastic bag thing, which I always find really funny, I do quite often see people walking down the street and you know they've had this idea in their head. They forgot the bag and they'll be like, I refuse to buy a plastic bag, and literally just carrying everything.
Well, that's the best way, actually. Yeah, why not? If you can do it. Yeah,
if you can carry everything, go for it.
Yeah.
But if it feels like, you know, when you get to the airport and they tell you you're overweight, and you're like, I'm just going to wear it all. You pack the bag, you put it all on. That's what it reminds me of. But so this is one thing I think is really important about your Zero Waste Challenge. It wasn't just about one aspect of the concept of zero waste. It wasn't like just attacking plastics and saying like, I need to reduce all the plastics in my life. It was, you were looking at food as well. You looked at other aspects. What other aspects other than the food and the plastics were you kind of trying to reduce in this waste challenge?
Well, it kind of just overtook my life or made me rethink my life completely.
Oh, wow.
Because I then started off, you know, supermarket shopping and you're like, okay, I get it now. The food wrapped in plastic, okay. I can go to, we call them wet markets in Hong Kong, or the local markets. Get things without packaging as much as I can, or reuse the packaging as much as I can. But then I go home and then I see in my bathroom, everything is in plastic.
Yeah.
Everything has packaging. And then the cleaning products. And then also the clothes that I wear, which, if you think about it, it's also fast fashion, but then also just living minimally is really where it took me.
Yeah.
And how, okay, so I don't need 5 cleaning products to clean the bathroom. Maybe I just need to make a bit of vinegar and, you know, like, what is it called when you, I've forgotten what it's called now, where
Baking soda.
also baking soda.
Yeah.
But then you can also ferment your old orange peels and make cleanser with it. And then dishwashing soap, you could use sort of like natural materials for that. So you don't need all of those products that the big corporates are telling you that you need, you know, one for cleaning glass, one for cleaning the table. And then also really don't need as many things as society tells you. And it's really just, then I stripped down my lifestyle completely and really thought about every purchase that I made, and it was a real revelation. And then it makes you think. I stopped that challenge about 5 years ago, but I still don't make hasty purchases. I don't then just go, okay, I need something, I'm going to buy it now. I think about how many times I'm going to use it, etc.
Yeah. I was going to ask about, because you said it, you know, it really did change your life doing this challenge. Did you find that, other than people you knew, did you find that, I won't call them strangers because that sounds like stranger danger, but people you didn't know were interested in what you were doing?
Yeah. The good thing that came out of the whole challenge was that I was then able to share my experience with a lot of corporates. I mean, a lot of corporates love to, you know, have a good story and then share and then talk about waste. And so I've done a lot of corporate talks. And, you know, I've met so many different types of people, from bankers to, you know, schools, school projects, etc. But everyone is interested in why that kind of lifestyle is appealing.
Yeah.
Everyone is interested in why it's harmful to the environment. So it's just, you know, I position it a way of like, you don't have to do everything.
Yeah.
Just try one thing and then maybe it will inspire you to try something else. So there's small aspects and think different. It hits our lives, you know, 360. You can join at any stage that you are.
Yeah. And did you, because I've seen this term kind of battered around, eco-anxiety. And it's normally, like, when I've heard about it, it's always talked about in terms of, like, young people. Like, young people getting so anxious because, you know, partly because they're powerless. They can't vote people into power who are actually going to help the situation. And also because they are going to have to live with it. So it feels to them that we're creating all the drama, like prop drama. We're creating all the problems and they're going to have to live with the consequences. Now, as that applies, the concept, not so much of that, but the concept of eco-anxiety, when you were doing this zero waste challenge, did you get like anxious and like frustrated with it? Or were you feeling very much like, no, I can do this. This is going to be positive. Like, how did it make you feel internally?
I think it was a roller coaster.
Oh, really?
Like anxiety one day and then positivity the next. It depends on the type of people that you surround yourself with as well.
Yeah.
So like my aim was to really make sure that I talked to as many people as possible and reached as many people as possible to talk about the issues.
Yeah.
But then you get a lot of cynicism on the other side of like, oh, it's not the consumer. And it's true, you shouldn't put a lot of weight on the consumer or responsibility, because it really comes from corporates themselves, and it's really doing your research and making sure that they're being held accountable as well. So I mean, it was ups and then there were downs, and there still are, and it's really hard, but you do get inspired by small things that happen, you know. Slowly countries are banning single-use plastics.
Yes.
It could, you know, so so it really pushes companies to think of other alternatives of what to push to the market, what's actually makes sense. We're not just talking about bioplastics then as a replacement, you know, can we bring in reusability into it? Can we just look at reducing a lot and changing the design of a lot of materials as well?
I actually wanted to touch on something you said about minimalism, and kind of touching on consumerism and how that's partly causing the issue. So within fashion, for example, I don't think a lot of people know this, but within sustainability, it's very well known that fashion is a massive cause of the climate problem, pollution, in the way it's made, sourced, a lot of things. And in terms of when you were doing the challenge and even just now, what things do you think you can do as the consumer if you are conscious of these things and if it matters to you?
It's really hard when you're looking at fashion because you really have to do your research, because it's not just about the quality. Obviously, just common sense wise, if you invest in something that's a bit more expensive, a bit more higher quality, it will last a bit longer.
Yeah.
That's the main thing to think about. But then you also have to think, is that the main issue that you want to address? Because there's the waste one part, but then there's also supply chain and then human rights as well down the supply chain, and then looking at workers' rights there. These big companies, they're just passing it on to a third party, all of the responsibility. So they're saying, it's down the supply chain. I don't need to be responsible for the workers in these factories because I'm just buying from the factory.
Yeah.
So that's all passed down. So then you think you really have to do your research then. And what I like to do is just go with smaller brands that have a main message on the website, and then they talk about if they can be more transparent about the materials that they source, for example the cotton, which is very, very hard to go down that supply chain because you're really looking at a very water intensive product. The workers' rights could be violated. Who is actually making your clothes? So you really have to do that research. So I have a really good friend, actually, who started a company called Finch, Finch. I think on Instagram it's Choose Finch.
Okay.
And they do comparisons for the everyday consumer of
cool.
like, you're having anxiety about, what kind of T-shirt to buy or what kind of loo roll to buy. They're based in the US, but it's the general idea. So they get experts in and they really study each product, and then they give you they sort of weigh out everything for you. So I think that's like going to websites like that can help you do that comparison, because not every consumer has the time. It's like, I just want a pair of shoes, I don't want to spend hours researching it. So it's use the tools around you, but it's also not as simple as Adidas saying it's
guys, now we've got this eco brand,
right,
just the one though, and it's 3 pieces. Exactly.
Or H&M having a sustainable brand, which it's made with recycled materials, but maybe a small percentage of it is made with recycled materials, and they're slapping that brand on. So that is really for the consumer that wants to do good,
but it's not. It has, because that a lot of sustainability advocates and people in that space came out and were like, this is greenwashing, and a lot of those people were actually quite angry because they kind of co-opted. I think they were mostly younger members in that space for that advertising campaign. I remember it was a bit of an uproar at the time, but I think it was just an uproar within the sustainability space. I think to the general consumer, I don't think they were aware at all. Yeah,
people just want to feel good when they buy something. Yeah. So if you're saying that my shoes are going to save a turtle, then you're like, okay, great. But then you just need to do the research of how they're doing it, what materials, how much percentage of it, don't always believe what the big brands are saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that really speaks to a wider issue of big brands co-opting various initiatives and I always say spaces and energies, and I think, I know it sounds really airy-fairy, but that's the place I'm in, people. That's where I am at these days. But, you know, for example, with, like, graffiti artists, and now, like, big companies are doing, like, the graffiti posters and stuff, and hip-hop culture and black culture, and the way that gets co-opted into big corporations.
Yes.
You know, it's seen all over the place, but I think it's not talked about as much with the sustainability sector, but it's 100% happening. Yeah, sorry, that was just my 2 cents.
I mean, companies just want to tick a box, though. Yeah. They don't want to be left behind. They want to be seen as forward-thinking, for investors' sake, and, you know, for the consumer trust in that way. But you know, it's a complicated issue. It's not easy to find out as well. Super
complicated. Okay, so I'm going to move into the quickfire game.
Okay.
We are going to come back to sustainability, but I'm going to take a little break. Okay, so it's just what would you rather? It's quite easy.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong answer either. I know you were a bit... you were like, I'm really not good at these, but it's going to be fun. Okay, so walk by the canal or walk by the river?
Canal.
Okay. Sorry, I write these things down and then I try and read them and I'm like, what? Okay, I was going to say garage and then I realised it's garage music or grime music.
Garage. Grind?
Grime.
Oh, I was like, grind music. Garage.
Okay. Mayonnaise or ketchup?
Oh, can I combine them to make a pink sauce?
Oh, like burger sauce?
Yeah.
No, pick one.
Oh, sorry. Mayonnaise.
West London or East London?
Oh, that's really tough. I'm from West London, but I lived in East London. I'd say East.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
Buses or the tube?
Tube.
All right, we learned a little bit about Hannah.
Yeah. Though it needs some air conditioning. Although also that's bad for the environment. But it's bloody hot on the tube.
Elizabeth line, have you been on it yet?
No.
Wow, it's pretty lush. To be fair, it was so expensive and so over budget and so overrun on the timescale. It needs to be.
Yeah.
But it's really nice. Like I was sitting on it, I was like, oh, this is lovely. I was having like a real like moment of it's just amazing. All this engineering. Because it really did feel like that. Like it's much deeper than a lot of the tubes I've been on. It's probably similar to like Covent. Oh, sorry, I'm going down my engineering. We'll move off. I digress.
I will take this.
It's because I work with like tunneling engineers, so now I really appreciate what they do. When I was like under the. Okay, stop. Right. So next, what I wanted to ask you about.
We love the tube. Yeah.
It's just amazing. What I wanted to ask you about was jewellery. So, kind of like, because the sustainability conversation is not just about being sustainable. It also talks about ethical. And not as this philosophical kind of concept, but as the idea that in order for things to be sustainable, they need to work for everyone.
Yeah.
So jewelry's an interesting one, right? Because it feels like it's a minefield of problematic situations, especially for the people who are mining the jewels or sourcing whatever the material is, whether it be gold, platinum, whatever. So, what are your thoughts?
It's definitely... I'm getting married, by the way.
What?
You knew
no.
this. You are invited to the wedding.
What?
Yeah. It's really hard to... Then I suddenly got all this eco-anxiety, and I was like, oh, what do I do with everything to do with a wedding and getting married?
Okay, so I have to ask, when your fiancé proposed, was that your first thought? Like, shit, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, really, like, this sounds really unsustainable. But even before we proposed, I was kind of like, do you know if you ever get me a ring, like, don't get me a ring.
But I'll marry you, but just don't get me a ring.
I don't want a blood diamond, you
Yeah.
know? It's really... It's this whole world that sucks you in, and you think that you have to comply or you have to get a diamond, and then that shows your worth. And so I was completely against that. I was like, I have done my research. I'm not going to get any new diamond or any kind of diamond. You can get lab-grown diamonds now, which are... Because actually diamonds aren't that
well, they're
valuable.
But they're made from carbon, aren't they?
Exactly.
It's just the fact that... Sorry, going on my engineering chemistry thing. You know how they're made. It's just the pressure and then... Yeah. But essentially it is just carbon.
Yeah.
Which... The difference between, like, carbon graphite, i.e. a drawing thing, or a diamond is just the process by which the carbon... atoms sit, and that's about the process by which they're made. But essentially carbon is everywhere, so it could very well be done in a... I imagine it's expensive though, because the heat and the pressure you require, it's excessive.
It's probably on par with a regular diamond, or slightly cheaper lab-grown diamond. Which is the second option if you're thinking, okay, I don't want... Because it's really hard to go down that supply chain of diamonds, or many jewels for that matter. It's linked to, a lot of atrocities. Also, it takes a lot of mining. You really take away the earth to mine these minerals and things. So a lab-grown one is a better alternative if you're thinking about it. But also it takes a lot of heat and pressure, so it takes a lot of energy to produce as well. But a more sustainable way is to get a already existing diamond. So my fiancé has proposed with actually a family heirloom. So it was his grandmother's passed down to his mother and now to me, which is a very special thing. And it's not to say that when it was mined a long time ago, it wasn't related or wasn't linked to perhaps a blood diamond. But because it's reused, it's actually the most sustainable way to think about it.
Definitely. And on the point of... Because I was just thinking... It's like a theme on the podcast. I was just thinking, it's not just about the fact that the working conditions for some of these people who are mining these gems or precious stones or precious materials can be horrendous. It's the fact that some of these materials are coming out of war-torn countries. So there's the issue of... they're called blood diamonds for a reason. It's because they're coming out of war and people are being put into awful circumstances to mine them. But you also have to remember that, and you know this well, the jewels that a lot of monarchies have, or rich and famous people have, especially the very old ones, are actually stolen from other countries. So, it is a minefield. And I really actually respected you for wanting to make every aspect of your life sustainable and not just be like, I'm getting married, who cares?
Throw it out the window.
I really love that, and I think it's actually a really beautiful sentiment, and it really speaks to who you are as a person. If you...
Oh, well, I'm not perfect, though. I wouldn't say I was perfect.
No, it's not. And I'm not trying to... Of course, you're perfect in my eyes, but I'm not trying to imply that. But what I'm trying to say is that you found something that's important to you and you're trying to incorporate into every aspect. It's the consistency for me. And I think that's something that a lot of people are always talking about whenever they want to reach a goal. It's about consistency. And I think you, with the Zero Waste Challenge, with sustainability, with ethical work, you exemplify that. So here are your flowers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm trying hard not to get sucked into other wedding customs, it's really it's the whole industry that's designed to make you buy something, and it's such a weird world
at an extortionate price. Because I swear, the same halls that are used for weddings and they're charging like 5 times for the wedding is also used for someone's 16th birthday party, and they pay a fraction of the price that a wedding pays for it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's mad.
I know. It's insane. So I really wanted to rent a dress, but I couldn't do it because I'm traveling a lot. So I'm getting married in the US because my fiance is from Boston. So I decided to go with a charity called Brides Do Good, which is really great concept. They have sample dresses and prototype dresses that's donated from the brands. To the store, and then a third of the profits go to a charity that helps empower women. And the whole motto is really to end child marriages. So, I mean, it's for a good cause.
Yeah.
It's not a brand new dress. It wasn't designed to be well, I mean, it was designed to be warm, but then, there's something wrong with it. So rather than for it to go to waste, then it's donated. Or you can actually donate your old dresses there, which I intend to do as well, is just to donate it back. So then it goes back and gets reused.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you told me about the dress, it's beautiful, by the way, but when you told me about the dress, I thought that was actually a really clever concept, because it literally is that one day, like, when are you ever going to wear a wedding dress? Especially when you have, like, really extravagant ones with, like, the trains. You're just never... There's never going to be a reason.
I've never heard of a bride that doesn't say, oh, my dress is just collecting dust in my wardrobe, like, it's not like you're going to wear it ever again. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it makes so much sense, and I think that company is great. We'll put some info for them on the video. Tom will do his magic. So, okay. I had to make notes because I felt like we could really go off on a tangent. So we had spoken, but not actually properly in depth about this, but you had mentioned that in your bathroom you were like, there's plastic everywhere. But for women, it's slightly different when it comes to trying to be sustainable and ethical and, like, reducing plastics, because this might be a bombshell to some people, but we have periods. So...
Shocker.
No, it's crazy. And there's that whole industry is crazy. Like, I remember when we were in school and the lady from, I don't know if I can mention the company, but a company came to tell us about all the products they had. And I literally stuck with that product for like maybe 10 years. And then it got to a point where I was like, this product's actually not good for me. And I had to look for something else.
What was it? As a towel or?
It was pads.
Pads, okay.
But I was finding that I was having really bad irritation. I mean, I have like, my skin's always crazy, but I realised it's the plastic in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, after 10 years, no wonder my body's like, nah, I can't do this no more.
And you literally sold that as a teenager.
Exactly. I mean, things have changed a lot. Like, the products which are available now, I don't think I would have been able to find in the 90s or early noughties. Like, it was not going to happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you think about how insidious it was, that they came into your school and then, you know, and they were the only ones. It wasn't like we had loads of options.
Yeah.
It was just this one company and they came to the school, you know, they told us about the products, when really they shouldn't have been the one educating us about the options.
Well, the school's probably thinking it's an advantage because it's someone talking to them about period.
Who knows? But they have a vested interest, which is to sell you stuff.
Yes, yeah. That is unethical if you think about it now.
Yeah, definitely.
You really do need the choice as a consumer, and you start being a consumer from when you start your period, which is these days 13, 14, so it's a very young group of
even younger women. Like, I knew people who started when they were 11 and people who had their periods when they were in primary school, and you know, it can be a really big portion of your life. So
what do you use right now?
So right now I'm on bamboo. I'm on bamboo. Sorry, I'm using bamboo pads, which I think they're great. And I use tampons as well. And I'm thinking about going back to a cup because I started with one, but I moved to one, but I didn't find.
What were your pain points with the menstrual cup?
It's messy.
Yeah.
I actually read a very good article about it, and it really summed it up. It is extremely messy. It wasn't one for like being out in public with, because you just don't know what you're going to meet in a toilet. So you don't know if you're going to have access to a sink. So that was definitely a no. But it was handy for like going to bed with. Like sleeping with a cup in was perfect. But it wasn't like every time I used it, there were no leaks.
Mm-hmm.
And that really irritated me because I'm like, I'm going through all this extra drama.
Yeah.
And it has the same disadvantages as like pads and tampons. So I'm just like, But I mean, what I really like about it is firstly, people are talking about periods. Because when we were younger, it was literally amongst ourselves. And you remember those magazines? Oh, what were they called?
Like, it's...
More...
Yeah, I remember More. Something 17.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which were like specifically aimed at teenagers.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, were really wildly inappropriate.
Yeah. Those are bad for every teenager.
Tips on like kissing is fine and stuff, but they had like sex positions in there. There was a lot, and I'm like, I'm 15. What's going on?
I was like, why do I need to know all of this?
I'm like, it's interesting, but it was very... Yeah, anyway, that's another story. But with the... I've lost
the
my
menstrual... No, the cups.
Yeah, with the cups, I just found that it was a lot of drama for not as much benefit as I thought. Because even with a cup, I was still having to use pads and tampons because you just cannot use them everywhere.
It's true. Yeah, I agree. It's messy.
Yeah, and I've seen loads of different kinds of products which claim to do all these kind of things. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm spending loads of money trying loads of different things out. And it's kind of like, I know this kind of works. And I figured out a way to use it. With the bamboo pads, I actually think they're great. They're like organic and it's they're comfortable, they're good for my skin, all of that. But I am thinking about moving on to... You must have heard about the period pants.
I love period pants, I have to say.
I have not met one person who has had a problem with them. Every single person who's ever spoken to me about it, they're amazing. So in my head, I have like a mental block, but I'm going to jump over the hurdle.
Yeah, there are quite a few brands that are out now. I think there was only one or two when I started researching with them. So there's the Thinx, THINX, which I think were one of the first companies to do this. Yeah. And they have 4 layers of material, and it's like magic. It's just so absorbent. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, you go and then you rinse it under a cold tap, and then you'll see that it has held a lot. Okay. And then you put it in the wash. Yeah. So it's just super easy to manage. How I usually do it is the cup and the period pants together. So I do find that when you're out in public with the cup, there might be leakage, and you wouldn't want that at all. If I do have a super busy day, then I don't tend to use that cup that full day. Maybe I'll choose, if it's a heavy day, then it's a bamboo kind of or organic tampon, let's say, wrapped in paper. So there's some more eco-friendly brands where rather than the applicator, the plastic applicator with the plastic wrapping, these days you can find a paper applicator or even no applicator at all, and paper wrapping. So there's stages of how far you can go or want to go, or if it's convenient to go. And I think just having all of that ready with you so it's not so daunting. That it makes it okay. Not like I have to stick with this cup and then it's halfway through the day. It's a specific like a particularly heavy day, you know, what are you going to do? You go to a public toilet, it doesn't work like that.
No. And it's funny you mentioned the paper applicators, because I remember when the applicators first came out, it really was like a revolution at the time. It was like, oh, wow. And they were paper in the beginning. And then they've become plastic over time. So it's quite interesting that now they're, you know, the forward-thinking companies are using paper again.
Yeah. Well, I remember when it was like, don't get this paper bag, save trees, get a plastic bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just comes round of how you think about what you want to save.
I think it's also about education, because I think in the 90s, whenever I talk about the 90s, it's like, last decade. It's not last decade. It was so long ago. But in the 90s, like I remember when I was in primary school, there was this competition, and it was like, it was one of those like, write what you'd like your hopes for the future to be. And I was like, we should stop deforestation, and we should like stop using things that ruin the ozone layer. I used to watch Captain Planet religiously, so I was on this. And then I was also like, and people should stop being racist, and like all these hopes and stuff. But we had no concept that plastics were bad. Or could have there was a problem with plastics, basically. It just wasn't part of the conversation then, because I remember the focus, in terms of the environment, it was an obsession with the ozone layer.
Well, I mean, it got fixed, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I was reading something which was like, what? It's back? There's problems with the ozone layer again?
We're back!
Oh, damn it, we didn't fix it properly.
But people have known about carbon emissions and
yeah, it's been like, what, 30, 40 years now?
Yeah, people have known about that for a very long time. And you get lobbyists, you get people who are
denying it exists.
for cars and for the coal and fuel industry, you know, that then quieten down these voices. But we've known about that. There's a good point that you made about the plastic is that it wasn't very well known.
No, it wasn't.
Maybe from the plastic creators, they probably had an inkling, but then we really had to wait a few decades for us to see the impact before we really understood. I
think it's the seeing the impact, because I feel like, I'm sure there were people who were like, well, it's petroleum based. Like, I'm sure chemists knew it wasn't going to biodegrade. Like, I don't think it was that far of a stretch for them to be like, yeah, this isn't actually going to degrade, because it's not. You know,
we've designed it to be super durable and light and cheap.
Exactly. But you're right. It's the lobbying thing, and I think it's for people to see it. It's when people see parts of the sea literally covered in plastic products, you know, and like the plastic, what are they called? It's like a plastic island that's somewhere in the sea. And
Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Yeah, exactly.
Which isn't just one patch, by the way. Several.
Tell me more. I did not know this. So what, is it just like bits of the Pacific that have these patches?
Yeah, they're forgive me if I don't pronounce this right, but they're gyres, Gyres.
Okay.
That are basically like whirlwinds around the ocean, and then the plastic kind of like go around it because they're drawn towards these these gyres. So there's 5 of them all around, so it's not just one island.
So what? It's just like this constantly moving whirlwind in the sea
of plastic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, just, you know, extending the thought here. If I'm a ship and I'm on a cruise, like, is it something I could fall into the gyre?
I don't think it's that small.
Okay.
When you think about it, it's a massive.
Right. Okay. The captain will see the gyre, right?
Yes.
Like, okay. Just checking.
Just lost so many lives to the gyres.
Massive plastic gyres, yeah. Okay, so that makes a bit more sense. Because I kind of wondered, like, why is the plastic all coming together? It's not magnetic. It's not like... But now that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of the plastics sort of just float and then end up. And then a lot of it ends up on the coast as well. So it just comes from rivers.
Yeah.
Rivers are the highest polluters because, you get a lot of leakage from rivers, and then they leak down into the ocean, and then that's where they kind of end up.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, I don't know if you've seen the fatbergs.
No.
So, basically, in the sewer system, people like to throw, not like to, but people think it's okay to put certain items down the toilet.
Yeah.
And
Have you seen it all?
fortunately, I've never been down the sewer.
Okay.
But I did have at one point with my company, they found a massive fatberg and they took it and they were like, we're going to use this. So they made these plastic coaster things out of the fatberg. I was like, makes sense. Like, what else are you going to do? I mean, these things can be massive. Like, they can be huge because the sewers are really big. And...
That's disgusting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the coaster was clean. It was sanitised. I wasn't like, I'm just going to put my tea here on this people's sewage. But yeah, no, it's gross. But the big one is wet wipes.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of my massive gripes is when I go to the supermarket and they say, this is biodegradable. I'm like, not in the sewer. It's not biodegradable in a sewer.
No.
It becomes a fatberg if you get enough of them down there. So it's not just the wipes. It's also oils.
Yeah, like cooking oils and
Cooking
things.
oil,
Yeah.
That's a big one. A lot of people don't really know how to dispose of it. They tend to throw it down the sink.
What do I do with my oils?
So it's best to put it in a bottle. So one you're not going to be able to use for recycling and you're going to throw away anyway. Just throw it in a bottle and do it that. Make sure it's cold. Don't throw hot oil into a plastic bottle. That will go terribly wrong. But put cold oil into a bottle and throw it in the bin.
So no, like you never want to put it down the sink at all, right?
Sometimes it is unavoidable. Like if you've got a frying pan, you cook bacon or whatever, you're not going to be like, But yeah, if you're doing like chip pan fry or something, don't put that down the sink.
Yeah, it's interesting when we think about waste and like going back to the toilet. It's like it's designed so the waste leaves us and goes as far away from us as possible, so we don't even think about it.
That's exactly it. It's like I don't need to think about this anymore, and a lot of people don't because how many people are going to see a fatberg?
No, yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen. Like, I mean, in real life. Like, sometimes the press picks up and they're like, look what we found in the sewer. But on the whole, most people, they just see it and they don't even really understand what it looks like and what it must smell like as well, So, for them, it's so far removed.
Yeah. I mean, with the wet wipes, it's really the companies just confusing the consumer. It's
100%.
actually a liability for the consumer because they finished the wet wipe. How do I dispose of it? Now it's the consumer's responsibility to dispose of it.
Oh, no. And it's not really the consumer's responsibility to deal with the semantics of what they're saying because there are a lot of companies, there are some companies who are right, they're flushable. Everything is flushable.
Yes, like everything technically is recyclable. If you think about it.
It has to be, right? You can just use it again. So they're using language which to your average consumer you'd be like, yeah, that's fine. But you don't know the consequences because they're not saying, yeah, it's flushable, but it might turn into a massive fatberg 20 years down the line if you all do it.
Yeah.
So these are the issues, and it's definitely a wider issue. The onus shouldn't be on the consumer. It's 100% about government and corporations, in my opinion. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So I wanted to move on to our friendship. But friendship in general, not just ours, because, not everyone's privy to our friendship. You should be so lucky. But just to give some context, me and Hannah went to secondary school together. And it was many decades ago now.
Yeah. Just a few, yeah.
just taking it in how old I am. It's okay. And the school we went to was an interesting experience.
Yep. Yeah, we went to an all-girls private school.
We suffered.
In Surrey, but was a Welsh school.
Yeah, in England.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
But we weren't actually friends that close. We weren't that close during school.
No. It wasn't until sixth form. So our school was a girls' school from year 7 to 11. And then when you were in sixth form, which is, 16 to 18, they decided to allow the boys to come in to the premises. And I think that is so funny.
You may now interact with
really
boys.
It really was like that. You're now old enough to be trusted. Little did they know. So not old enough to be trusted. I don't think you could ever be trusted, but anyway, it's fine. So then we were mixed in sixth form, but from year 7 to 11, because we were a tiny school. Like when I speak to other people, they're like, yeah, there were 1,000 people in my year. I was like, there were 40 people in our entire year.
I know.
And it was split into 2 forms, and
that's wild, isn't it? Yeah, it was very small.
I'm surprised it wasn't a bit like, where the kids are on the island and they turn feral. Can't remember what it's called. Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
It was a little bit Lord of the Flies, but I'm surprised it wasn't more Lord of the Flies.
Right.
But yeah, we were small, and we did get quite cliquey in that era, especially when we were 15 to 16. I think we were so cliquey by that point. And then a whole bunch of people left, and then sixth form, it was just I really enjoyed sixth form. I know you might not think I did because there were some incidents, but on the whole, in terms of hanging out with everyone, I much more enjoyed that compared to year 7 to 11.
Yeah.
Because I felt like pretty much everyone I got on with, and it was people it was almost like, when you open the window and you're like, oh, I can see now, because it was all the dramatic people had left.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can actually see people for who they are, who I don't really normally talk to. So we actually spoke quite a bit during sixth form. We did prom together, in the truck.
Yeah.
So yeah, sixth form was kind of the beginning, our origin story, I would say, even though we'd known each other for 5 years before that. And then you went to uni, I went to uni, and I don't even know how we reconnected again.
I think when I moved back to London, because I moved
But how
to
did
East
I know
London.
you moved back? That was the thing.
Oh, I don't even know. Things happen like that, don't they?
Was it Facebook?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think it was.
I don't know. I think it must have been we just somehow reconnected.
Yeah.
But then reconnected in a very close way.
It was before you moved back.
Yeah.
Because when you were in Japan,
Yes.
I knew you were in Japan.
Ah. Yeah.
So I don't know how we connected, but we did somehow. It doesn't matter, people.
Yeah.
Forget that part of the story.
We reconnected.
Yeah.
But then going back to the minimalistic lifestyle, I really have it's really made me think about my friendships as well, and thinking, just showing up for, not having a million friends, but just knowing who's in the circle and then showing up for them.
100%.
Which I have been away, so I do apologise that I've not been in the same country as you. But
really, you apologise? No, it's fine.
Yeah.
When I'm up late randomly, I'll be messaging you because I know you're on a different time zone and you're up. So I'm like, hey, maybe she's around.
But it's so important to have that and be aware of that and be conscious.
100%. I think some people, there is a school of thought about friendship that thinks that if you have gazillion friends, your life is more. And I don't think it, for me, definitely not. It's 100% what you said, is having a small circle that I can show up for and they can show up for me as well. And it's really the give and the take. So for me, I really like to have friends who allow me to give. Because sometimes people are givers, right? And they never ever want you to give back to them. I find that kind of difficult.
Yeah. Because then how do you get vulnerable if they're so closed?
Exactly. It's almost like a defense system. Like, no, I won't let you give because I feel like I will owe you, or and it's not about that.
Yeah.
So it's always a bit, it's not a red flag, but it's a concern for me. So I like to be able to, I like friends who allow me to give as much as they give to me. And on that subject, I think, have you heard of the love languages?
I think you did mention this before.
Because I'm obsessed with it. It's a book I've never read, but I just know about it.
Okay.
It's also an audio, blah blah blah, whatever. But there are 5 love languages, and one of them's like acts of affirmation, like saying someone's beautiful, I love you, blah blah blah, all that good stuff. And then another one is gifting, like another one is like giving people your time, all these things. But I find it really interesting because now I'm aware of them. They're supposed to be for relationships, but I see them in my friendships. I have a friend who is 100% the gifter. And that's how she shows love.
Yeah.
And it'll be really random. She'll be like, I just bought this for you. And I'll be like, it's not my birthday.
Yeah.
It's not Christmas. And I'm just like, why has she done this? And it's because that's how she shows affection.
Yeah.
And now I just see it. Whereas once upon a time I would have been like, that's so weird. Why did she buy this for me? And I think in friendships, it is really about understanding what people's love language is.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Because I'm always like, oh no, you're too nice. But then if you understand that person and then you know that is what makes them happy, then you're like, okay, then you can sort of take that love a bit more.
Exactly. Because I think, everyone's always kind of obsessed with like romantic relationships and like, and like, especially in like TV and film and all of that. That's all we see. But I do think there is a special place for friendships, and they should be held up high.
Well, it's also unrealistic to think that this one partner that you're meant to find for the rest of your life is meant to be someone that you bitch about work to someone who then pays your bills with you. It's just too demanding to think that they can fulfill every part of your needs. And you do need different people to do that. And then I agree, people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And how you can't just depend on one person. It's not about finding that other half to make you whole, because that's not. That. It's just so unrealistic. And that's how a lot of relationships they begin. You think that it's going to complete you, but you're never going to be complete, and you have to find other places. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I'm very anti you complete me. I hate that concept. Like, quite passionately, I complete me. So
yeah.
I do think like it's almost a trap. Like, growing up is a trap. That concept of you complete me is a trap for me anyway, because I just think it leads to really bad thought processes and you become codependent on someone for your happiness, and you need to take responsibility for your own happiness. I think relationships are supposed to enhance a situation, not make it okay and like livable. Like, you need to find a way to make life bearable for yourself. But friendships, like, for me, my friendships are so important. Me and Hannah are two of a group of friends who all went to the same school, and like, I really value our circle. I think we've had some amazing times.
Yeah, I value it too. I think it's the older you get, I feel it just comes with age. The older you get.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was younger, I'd meet loads of nice people, and I'd really just be like, oh, that person's nice, and just walk away and not even think twice about it. And now when I meet someone nice, I'm like, oh, they're nice. I wonder if they want a friend.
Yeah. Let me cling on to you.
Don't leave me. No, but it's just because as you get older, the reality is you start to realise, like, people who you vibe with, there is a selected number of them. You are not vibing with everyone. You're not everyone's cup of tea, and they're definitely not yours. So when you do meet people that you can click with, you do want to like make time for them, 100%. And when I was younger, I just took it for granted. When you're younger, you are I swear you meet like 10 people per day.
Yeah.
For like until you are 25 or something. It's like constantly meeting new people. So you just think that's how it's always going to be.
Also pre-COVID.
That's true. That's true. COVID has definitely changed my perspective.
I've been in Hong Kong for a long time, and 3 years of the pandemic. I've not met anyone. Not one new person for 3 years.
I'm so bored of you lot. I need new people.
It has been hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was very different over here. We have a very, I don't know, I'm not going to be too critical, but it has been very different. It's been very like, let's just see how it's going. Just wash our hands for 20 seconds and it'll be fine kind of situation. It's been a bit laissez-faire.
Whereas in Hong Kong...
Yeah, it was hardcore, wasn't it?
It's still a zero COVID policy. So any whiff of a case and they're like, shut down the city. You're not allowed to do anything. You get sent to government quarantine camps and everything. So it's the other extreme. So I wish there was something a bit more...
In the middle, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just hope it doesn't last too long.
Yeah.
I hope COVID goes away one day. But in the meantime, you know, it's amazing to have you in town.
Thank you.
Because it has been so long now. Partly because of COVID. Because you used to come like every summer.
Yeah, I haven't been back home to see my immediate family, all here for 3 years. So that is a significant amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. Could have got a degree and stuff.
I know.
You did in COVID.
Yeah. Could have went to university this whole time. Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And again. Anyway, yeah, I don't often do this, but because we're friends, do you have questions for me?
I wanted actually, when you were talking about school, felt like my experience of school, because we weren't that close. We
rolled in different circles in school.
We did. I want to know what your experience was. I know there was a lot there. I don't know if you even want to unravel that, but
I would love to.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's a lot, and I think to put it into context, like there was a lot of juxtapositioning happening with when I was there. I say when I was there, I literally went from year 7 all the way to the end. I was there for the whole thing. It was, but my time at that school, it was really difficult. Like, and the crazy thing, so I went to, the school we went to was a boarding school. Hannah was a day girl, I was a boarder. Also, my family is working class. That school was not working class.
Yeah, my family.
Yeah, exactly. Both of our families are working class.
Yeah.
And there was definitely... And I kind of knew it was coming because, like, my mum was really adamant that I go to a private school. Because, you know, she's from Nigeria. She went to a boarding school. She's like, I went to a boarding school. You must go to a boarding school. I said, I don't understand this concept. But, okay, we go. We move. And, you know... The saving grace for me of that school was the boarding house. So I hated the day school, like, quite passionately. And I think it was quite obvious that I had many issues with a lot of my teachers. Some of them loved me, though. So it wasn't just me being naughty, and I wasn't naughty.
No.
I was more rebellious, I think.
I don't think you were naughty at all. You were just speaking the truth, and you were treated... badly, I have to say, by the staff, by the teachers.
It was a little Matilda-ish. I'm big, you're small. Like, there was definitely that. And there was also the fact that because I was the kid on the scholarship, there was this sense that I should be grateful to be there and just accept any crap they threw my way. I was supposed to be like, oh, thank you so much. And
you owe me kind of thing.
Yeah. And I never had that mentality. I was like, I spent ages studying for these exams and I passed them, not you. So I made my way here. And I always had that sense in my head, to my mum's dismay, because I really felt for my mum. The amount of time she had to come to that school because of whatever had happened. And the school was like, what, an hour and a half from London? So, yeah, my mum put in a good shift. Well done, mum. But, yeah, no, I struggled. And honestly, I put a lot of it behind me mentally, like just kind of blocked it out. Like, I was in university. So after I finished that school, I went to university in Montreal. More to just get away.
Yeah.
So I gotta get out of this country. While I was at university, I remember having like weird flashbacks where I'd be like, was I head of house?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, did I dream that? I was like, oh my goodness, I was head of house. It became like, it was like a weird trauma response, because in a way it was a little bit traumatic for me. I'm not saying like people have gone through much worse, but it's the 7 years of prolonged feeling. Like, it was like every morning I had the fight mentality. Like, that was my mental brain. And I didn't realise it until I went to university. And I just, like, physically, the stress levels were lower. I was so much more relaxed, even though I was at university doing a degree, which was actually challenging.
Yeah, you must have been traumatized, because it was a daily battle of
it was quite
being
a lot.
told that you were different.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I remember having one incident with a teacher where all I said, it was the head of sixth form. I don't even know what had happened, but I said, you know what? I feel like I've got a target on my head. And then she was like, it's not because you're black. And I was like, I didn't say that.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was something along those lines. And I remember being like, I didn't say that, but we all know that's what it's about, really. It's about, and it's not just being black, it's being working class and not from Surrey. Because there was definitely this mentality that like, oh, she's the poor inner city kid and we're saving her. And I guess I didn't want to be saved.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, but I mean, in a way, what helped me get through all of that is I had some fantastic teachers, like Mrs. Muir, Mrs. Stranahan. Like, I loved those women. Like, they really helped me in my education, because a lot of the time I felt like I was battling to be educated.
Yeah.
The chemistry drama with the chemistry teacher in sixth form. Like, there were so many different things where I felt like
they didn't want you to...
They wanted me to conform, and I was not willing to conform. Like, they got my accent, and that was what I was willing to give. Because I didn't used to speak like this when I showed up at that school. So, yeah, I wasn't willing to conform, and it really bothered a lot of people. And it was really surprising how non-conformity... And it's not like, I'm not hurting you, I'm not trying to persuade you to do my way of things, I'm just not doing it your way, how that can piss so many people off.
Yeah.
And
I find it quite admirable. I was quite inspired. I was so malleable at school that I was different. I was made to feel different, but I conformed.
Right.
So I kind of just sat back and I was like, go Ayo, you do it for the rest of us. But, you know, it is inspiring to have you, I mean, it must have been exhausting, but you like fighting that daily battle.
I do feel like a lot of the boarders were like that, though. I felt because we were fighting it literally at home and at school. We were just like, we're in. There was no rest. So we were like, right, we're here for this. Morning, noon and night, we're here for it. And that kind of, because it wasn't just me as a boarder who had issues.
Yeah.
There were quite a lot of us. Like, when I think about the boarders versus the day girls, there were some day girls who had issues. I'm not going to lie. Like, we had some incidents at our school, a lot of it surrounding boys, which really killed me. Because I'm like, they're not even here and they're causing drama. But, yeah, I did find the boarders, because in the boarding house there was drama as well, mostly coming from the teachers, not from within ourselves. We just had this we had a little bit of a battle mentality. Not everyone experienced it, but some of us did. And so that's kind of how we were. To be fair, though, it's not like I came to the school like this really lovely child, and then I was like, it was kind of my spirit as a kid. And I think being a London kid, you have a way different mentality to kids in the suburbs. Like, you experience things in a really different way. You see different things. Like, I was really shocked by some of the things some of the girls at the school said and thought, because I was like, what? Excuse me. I don't know if you were there, but one girl asked me what colour my blood was. So
I remember that so clearly.
You were there, right?
Yeah.
And
I was like, I was just gobsmacked when you... Well, I mean, it's just ignorance, right?
It is ignorance, but
it's harmful because...
For me, I was like... I mean, I didn't even give her a proper answer. I said it was purple. Like,
yeah, I remember you...
I'm not taking you seriously when you're talking to me like that. But that was the atmosphere.
That sums it up. If you say that was the essence of the school, of just like innocence and not knowing and just being oblivious, but in
quite a like actively violent way.
Yeah,
microaggressive way.
Yes,
it was very microaggressive in like just various ways of doing things. Like they're like, honestly, I could talk for hours about the number of things, but also some really great things happened. Like, my English teachers were amazing. We met, and like, I do find one funny thing about that school is I feel like when I bump into people that went to that school, it's all love. Not with everyone, but actually it is all love. Even with people I didn't like back then.
Yeah.
They're still nice to me. So it was a bonding experience, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, it is learning experience for everyone. I think everyone needed to go through that. But then it was definitely unfair on you, but
yeah, and it was unfair on you as well, and it was unnecessary. That's the one thing I always thought about it. It was unnecessary for people in their 40s and 50s to treat people who are in their teens and kind of literally coming of age the way some of us were treated. They should have known better.
I don't think it would so much. I'd hope not to think that now you'd think that teachers and heads of school would be more educated and inclusivity. You'd hope that the environment now, even in a posh private school, that it's more inclusive.
I think it really depends. I think it depends on leadership, because that was one thing because we had different headmistresses during our time there, and I noticed the difference. I thought my first headmistress was bad. I had no idea. The second one came, I was like, this is hell. This is so bad. So, I think it's about leadership and direction. But also, the society we live in is very different. Like, the concept of non-binary did not, I did not know it when I was a teenager.
No.
And I thought I was really forward-thinking. I didn't even know what it meant. So, things have changed a lot. And I feel like all children, whether you're in the suburbs, the countryside, or the cities, because there's so much information. Like, we grew up when the internet was going and people were like, get off the phone, and we didn't have broadband, so we grew up in a very different time where information was not easily accessible. Do you remember you had to get that thing, the encyclopedia CDs?
I don't have CDs.
There were CDs that you put in the computer. I can't remember what it was called, and it was like this encyclopedia, and you'd search in the engine.
That's hilarious.
It was basically Google, and you paid a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
And you would find out information that way. Whereas now you can find your tribe because of the internet, whereas you could not do that. Like, if you lived in the back, I don't know, the suburbs, or like somewhere where everyone was pretty much the same, and if you didn't fit into that, you were going to feel really alone unless you could find someone who could, I'm not you, and I don't really understand you, but I'm willing to empathise. Like, unless you could find that person. Whereas now, you don't even need to be in the same country, and you can find people who are like on your wavelength, and you can talk to them any time of the day. like it's a different world in many ways. So hopefully,
Yeah, it's hope for the future.
yeah, let's hope, people. And I think on that note we should end. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This was super fun.
It was super fun. It is super fun. And we're going to have even more fun in a few weeks. Sorry, you're not invited, people.
I thought you meant with your more podcasts, but yeah. You'll have more podcasts coming.
Forget the podcast. We're probably going to take a little break because I've got some weddings to attend. Yeah, there will be more with the podcast. But yeah, today has been about eco lifestyles and it's been amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.